Hello there and welcome. My name is Jimmy Wikman, and in this video we're going to take a look at assets again, and this time we're going to check out how do you actually import CSV files and how do you map, for example, values that you have connected to other object types, so you get that link right away when you import it. So let's jump directly into assets and let's take a look at how we do this. So here we are now in the test environment once more, and let's jump over to assets right away. And what I want to do today is I want to import into the Atlassian configuration the project data that we have there. So let's first take a look at what we have here. So under projects here, I have a number of projects. I have a number of attributes here. So you will see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different connections to other parts of the schema, where we actually have an object connection here. And I also have one for employees that is actually not even in this schema, but it is actually in a different schema called for the companies. So what I want to do here now is, I will export this one as a CSV, and then I will delete everything in this schema, and then we're going to try to import it again and make sure that it looks the correct way. So to export something, what you do is you stay in the object type that you want to export, and you click on the pen here for bulk actions, and then you will click on export objects, and then it will ask you what kind of delimiter, what kind of encoding, and also what format you want to have. So I always want to use the semicolon, because if you have text here with commas in it, that could actually break the formatting a little bit. So I choose the semicolon, and then I just click export here. And then you will see we will have one called export 39. And if I open this one, you will see that this is the format now for it. So if I just double click on this one, so we can just see the values we have here. I think the most important one is probably this one. This one looks very strange, and the reason why it looks very strange is if we go back to the to this schema here, you will see that it will actually have these emojis. So this is the value for it, and you will see we have these stars connected to it, and these stars, when you output them into Excel, they will look like this. So that's why it looks a little bit weird here. So that's what the data itself will look like, and it's not very complicated at all. So let's go back, and we will just close this one, don't save it. And we will just go back here. And what I want to do now is I want to delete everything here in the project. So the way I do that is the same way. I have 12, and I will delete these objects. And I will say that I understand that these will all go away. And before I do this, it's important that you know that in the current setup for export and import, it will take no consideration to, you see back here, I have a little saint icon here. It will not take those with you. So you will have blank ones that will be based on the object type. Just so you're aware of that one. You will lose all of that. And now I can delete these objects. And if I go down here and I go up again, you will see it is blank. So the only thing for me to do now is then I need to import these again to make sure that I get them back. So the way we do that is we go to schema configuration. So this is the configuration for the entire schema, so everything you have in your schema tree. So what we do here, we go in here, and then you will have at the end here, you will have the import tab. So in the import tab, then we can now configure an import. So the first thing we need to do is to create an import. We just click on create import, and then we get to choose then if it is a discovery import that will be through the automated spiders that will discover things. You can select the format of JSON, or you can have CSV, or you can have an external import where you configure an integration basically. So what we want to do for today's demo is we want to use the CSV import. And I've done this many times, and I'm always expecting something to happen when I select it, but you need to go down here to next to actually take it to the next page. So this one is now where we will upload this one, and we will name this one, and we'll basically create the skeleton for the import. So we will call this one product, and we can write a description for it, and then we will upload the file from your computer, and this one will then be export 39. And what we can select here now is we can either have this one automatically create object types and attributes. And if you choose this, it will actually import it into assets, and it will be under a new object type that is based on the name here. So in this case, it will be then named export 39, and then you will have the items there. So the next thing we need to do is we need to change the delimiter here. So we said that we had a semicolon, and we have the UTF encoding. That is what we exported. And concatenator, if we have that one, and this one will be used for multiple data locators. We didn't have any of those. And we can have ignore values if they are empty. So we can either skip them when we do the import, or we can remove them. And if there are unknown values, then we can add them. So if we don't have that as an attribute, for example, into our schema, we can add them anyway, or we can just ignore them. And then you can select the data format. You don't need to do this one in most cases, but if you want, then you can select, or you can set this one if it is different from what you have in your CSV. And the same thing with date time format. Now, if I unselect this one, I can map this myself, and then you will have a different option afterwards. But I think we will just do this automatically first so you can see what happens. So now we have our file, and we have the name for it, and we have selected them to automatically create based on the structure that you have in your Excel sheet or your CSV. So now we can just create the import, and now it will actually create it. So it will be ready to run, and so you can have it here now, and you can just import data. There we go. So if we go now to assets, and this was here, you will now see that we have a new section here, and there will have everything that is there. But you might notice that, for example, for complexity here, there's no image here. And the reason for that one is everything in here is text. So that's not what we want. We don't want to create this one as text object. We want to actually connect it to the different objects. So I will delete this one. And I will, there we go. So then it's gone. And then we go back to our integration here instead. So what we can do here, instead of importing it as it is we can edit the mapping here. So the way this one is done here right now, then it will just blast everything in here. So what we can do here instead is that we can now edit attributes mapping. Now you will see we can have all kinds of things here, and now we can change these to different things. But because this one was added as an export or an import where we also already set these, and then we cannot actually change it. So the way we need to do then is we need to delete this one, and we will create a new import. And we will upload the same file. But this time we will remove this one. We will not automatically create object types and attributes, and we will still set the semicolon, and everything we will leave the way it is. Oh, sorry, I need to have a name for it. There we go. Now it looks almost the same, but the thing that are different is that you do not have an import data functionality here. And the reason for that one is that this one is disabled, because we do not have a mapping yet. So the first thing that we want to do then is, and if you see here, now create the mapping, now it's blank, you don't have anything here. What you need then to do is to create a mapping, and this is now where you actually will target. Where do I actually want to place this? Where do you want to import it? So before, when you just let the computer just do it manually, just do it based on the name, then it will create something new. Now we can actually target this one. And I actually don't want to have it in projects, I want to have it in project. And then we can if we want, we can then do an AQL, and we can actually filter the data that we have if we just want to import a subset. And then we have different identifiers here. So how do you want to handle missing objects? How do you want to, if you want to have case sensitive or case insensitive? Missing objects, these are the same thing that we had before. But as you can see here, you do not have the option here to change, for example, the time objects. So they are, or the date time. So they will not be here. But by default, you can usually leave this one as is, and you don't need to mess with these at all. So we just create a new mapping here. So now we have, you remember we had something similar to this one before. If I want, I can enable this one, and now I can actually run this one, but nothing will happen because you haven't mapped any data. So if I run this one, it will just be a dry run, and nothing will happen. So we need to go then into, let's disable this one first so we don't accidentally trigger it. But we want to edit attributes mapping. That's the most important part then of having a manual import. So we create one, and it will automatically give you the starting point. And the starting point will always be, let me see if I can get this. So the destination is where it will end up. This is our current schema. And the one we have data source field, this is from the Excel sheet. And the first thing it will ask is the name object will be the identifier, and that one has to be set. So what we need to do then is to find the name here also. So we will name versus name. Makes perfect sense. And then we can just go through the list here. So we can have, for example, project type. And we will have project type on this one as well. Now, if I try to click add here, it will say, no, you can't. And the reason for that one is that in our schema, this one is connected to an object. If we go back here and we look at project type, this is an object that is connected to project type. So this is where we have to now connect these using smart values, or rather attributes, so we can actually connect these properly. So the way we do this, let me just go back here, is that we need to have something in the AQL here. And what do we have in the AQL? Well, that's the tricky part, because if you look online, for me it took 4 hours to actually get this right the first time I did it, because the information out there is not very good and it's very difficult to find. So let me just go over to my other instance and copy paste this one from that one so you can see what it looks like, and then we will talk about it. So the way this one works, or the way it looks, is actually like this. Now, this one is, and let's correct this one first so it will actually be correct. So this is what it should look like. So let's talk about it. So the first thing that we are doing here is to say that in the destination, we are looking at the label. The name of the attribute. That's what we're going to map. This is the same way that we map it in the assets. So if we look at assets here, and the way we are mapping it, if we are creating something new here, is that we are saying then, where do we have it? We have the, up here, project type here. So we will actually connect it to the name of the other object type. And this is the same when we do this one. So we say that the label that we are setting in assets has to be the same as the label that we get from the data source field. So this value here will then be just put in here. And you see the $sign here indicates this is a variable, and this is something that we are fetching from this one. And then what we are fetching is then this type. And that is the name that we have here. And this one is actually misspelled because in the data source, it is actually with the lower caps here. So we need to change this one so it will be the same. And now if we click add, it will accept that. So, and in the documentation, you will find many different variations of this one, depending on if it's for data center or cloud, and also if it is for the old Insight setup, or if it is for the new asset setup. So you will have a different sections or different variations that they say that this is how you should type it. But it is always this format. It's the label and that label should equal what you have in the data source. That's all that you need to do. So now we can just continue adding this one. So we can just product category, and it will be product category. And if we add that one, it is connected to. So we just need to enter this one, and we need to project. We just fetch it from this one. Product category. There we go. We can have complexity, and this one will also be complexity. And how did I know this one is because I remember what the structure were like. So normally what will happen is that you will just project lead here, for example, and you say project lead and you add, and then it will tell you, no, you have to connect this one with the AQL. The email. It's just a matter of going through all of these ones. So I will just, we don't have that many left. Integration. And workflow, it's the last one. There we go. And so now that we have this mapping, what we can do then is we can enable this one. And what it will do now, it will put this import now in live mode. So now you can actually import it into your assets. So as before, it will now say ready to run, and you have import data. So if I click on this one, now it will actually fetch from the CSV. And hopefully, if we've done it right, it will output this one correctly into our project asset object type. So fingers crossed, and see what happens. There we go. Now everything has been imported. And if we look into our project here, you will see now that all our projects are back. And you will also see that we will have the proper connections here now, because in the import, we connected them through the label, equals, and then we would have the data source name, and it will then fetch that one. If I click on this one now, it will be mapped then to the Jira Service Management object type. And the same thing if I go on complexity. And you will also see that these are no longer text fields. They are now proper object fields because we have connected them. By that simple adding of the label equals the data source name. So that's how you import things using the CSV import. And if I want, I can change this. I can keep this one, and I can upload a new CSV file for it. So I can actually, not here. So in this one, I can now select and upload another file if I want in the future. And as long as that one has the same data mapping, I can do this over and over again. So if you have, for example, a situation where you have, for example, an Excel sheet that you are working with, and you want to upload once a week or once a day or once a month or whatever frequency you have, you can actually just go in here and you can upload the new file, and then you can run an import for that one, and it will update automatically. And you can also, of course, at any time, you can go in here and you can disable this one. So then you don't risk of importing anything. So if you want to keep that export file, for example, but you don't want to have duplicates, because if you run this again, then you will have the same items once more. So if you want to keep this one and you want to have another CSV in the future, then you can disable this one. And then when you have uploaded this one, you can go in here and you can enable it again, and then you can import the data. And you can also remap this at any time that you want. So for example, in the future, if you change or if you add things or you remove things, then you can just go in here and you can delete something, or you can update it, and you can add new items then from your CSV file. And you can, of course, have multiple imports. So if I want, I could create another import of workflows, for example, or if I want users or whatever I want to have. So that was how you import things using CSV, and that is how you map objects between different object types. So I hope this was useful for you, and you have more hair than I have, because I lost everything getting so frustrated not finding this information online, or rather having too many other options. So this one was actually very difficult to find. And with that, I think that the only thing that remains for me to say is that I hope that you will have an awesome day and a great week.